Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're going to be looking at a game that's shortly going to be on Kickstarter on July 20th, Rucksack. And we're going to be giving our thoughts of it and kind of a little bit about how the game's played. So, first off, the game is played where there's a set of cards with scenarios on it. You're kind of in sticky situations, and you have to eventually tell a story about how you're going to get out of these situations. But then there's another stack of cards with a bunch of kind of random items that you could use, kind of MacGyver style, to try to get out of these situations.
Yeah, I think they couldn't get the rights for that name because this should have been called MacGyver.
Yeah, I could definitely see it being called that because, yeah, you just have to come up with a story with those. You'll end up getting 5 of these items, and then you have to kind of come up with your own story as to how you got out of the situation that you found yourself in. But
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how the game's played. Then you'll play a few rounds, 3 rounds of that, and vote. You'll vote for your favorite story out of all the players that are playing. So you'll all kind of do the same scenario, but all get 5 different sets of cards. So you all have very different stories typically.
Yeah.
And then whoever has the most is the winner. And in a case of a tie, you kind of just keep going between the tied players and see who eventually wins. But yeah, otherwise, our CHIPPI rating on this game, what do you have for core mechanics?
My core mechanics is a 7. It's pretty basic and just kind of one of those games where there's a certain scenario or prompt and everybody gets to throw in their answer.
I think that's kind of like it's used to apples or something.
Oh,
I think I played that a couple times. I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly how apples to apples is played, but kind of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of games like that. But one thing I liked about this one is how you got to build a story and how you didn't just get all of your cards at once, but you were able to get them one at a time, so you weren't overwhelmed with a handful of cards and try to make something happen with them. You were able to build your story one card at a time, and I think that took some of the pressure off, which some of these games can give you.
Oh yeah, a lot of pressure. So yeah, I also gave this a 7, and I agree with kind of what you're saying, where it's kind of a drafting push your luck mechanic of picking your items. So in the game, you will be able to either you'll draw the first card off the top of the deck, and then you choose that at that moment if you want to keep that card as one of your 5 items, or you can put it in a discard pile face up and then pick the next one, but you have to keep the next one no matter what. So it kind of gives
I tried to avoid that at all costs.
It kind of gives you that push your luck feel, because it's like, you got to get out of a burning building. Do you?
You're like, I don't really want this mirror, and then you pull up a baby doll.
Right. Oh, this is way less helpful. Now how am I going to get this in my story? So yeah, and then you can also, once there's cards on the discard pile face up, you can pick that top one as well. So it gives you one more option at the beginning of your turn. But I do enjoy that kind of the way you draft those cards. And you can still get stuck with some cards, and that's why it's still just a 7, because you can get 2 bad cards in a row. It's not like you're for sure one of these 2 is going to be good, but I like that push your luck.
Even then, you can try to tie these horrible items together into something weird and hilarious, and maybe still get some votes.
Right, because you go around the table, each person taking 1 card in that manner. So once you, like you said, for crafting your story, once you get 1 card, you can kind of maybe get other ones that go. You kind of get a direction of where you want to go with the story you're creating, and then maybe this item that maybe without that card wouldn't have seemed useful now does seem useful. So you maybe want to keep that now.
Yeah, I know. I've picked up a couple cards that others had discarded because they fit perfectly into my specific story.
So give that a 7. History, played this game 3 times, once with 4 players, and that's the way you play this when scoring. I played it kind of a little differently with 3 players a couple times, where we played the game the same way, only we didn't actually play with scoring. We just
more
kind
of
did
an
our
activity.
stories, more of an activity with those other couple plays. But I also wanted to see how it played with the scoring as well. but kind of like other party games, to me anyway, I don't ever really focus on the or the points and stuff, because it's like same with like Just One, which is one of my favorite party games. I'll just keep going as long as I want, or keep playing until everyone kind of is sick of playing, and that's kind of how I play most of my party games.
Yeah, I agree. I had only played it once officially as well, but I've really kind of messed around with some of those items and scenarios, and I think I prefer it that way as well.
Yeah. Investment. What did you give it there? Kind of investment of time, and if it's kind of outstays its welcome or not?
I think because it's 3 rounds usually, 3 stories. I think that's probably a good length, because if you have like 4 players, that's going to be 12 different stories. And I think that's a good amount, and as we like to play it, we could just keep going as long as we want.
Right.
And yeah, it's just a deck of cards, so you shuffle the deck of cards, and you're pretty much ready to play.
Right.
And like for replayability, I think that it's a pretty good investment. There are, I have listed, it might change because this is a prototype, you said, but currently there are 100 item cards and 50 different scenarios. So I think that could add a lot of replayability and a lot of unique combinations.
Right, yeah, you'll probably almost never have the exact same combinations from game to game or from story to story, which is nice, adds to a lot of replayability. I gave the investment. What number did you give it?
My number was 8.5.
Ooh. I gave it a 7. So, and I kind of said, I felt the same way as you, where it's like, I think 3 rounds is, officially for the game, when you're scoring points and whatnot, I think that's a perfect amount of time, but then it's a game, like many party games, it kind of offers you the chance to kind of play as many rounds as you'd really like to play. And then, kind of the time investment into it, I think you kind of just get what you put into it as well. Kind of, if you have players that are a little more zany and are willing to kind of be outgoing with the story, you get definitely more out of it. I think if you like it, 3 rounds feels about right for if you like to do the scoring version of it. That feels about perfect. Presentation. So we got a prototype version, so it's not exactly the final thing, but I still rated it a 7.5. I thought I liked the artwork on the cards, and they're all different pictures of the different items, and the different scenarios as well are just well written. And then also there's a few, there's like puns on all the cards.
Some
are better than others. But I like that as well. I like that they have those little things on there because, it just adds a little bit, when you're picking your cards. You might just see something on the bottom and you're like, well, I wasn't going to pick this, but now that I read that, I'm going to try to fit this into my story.
It might even help you. Might inspire something.
Right.
I think, I gave it a 7. I like the art and the text on the cards. I thought they were good quality cards, especially for a prototype. They didn't have any special finish on them or anything, but they were good quality. They weren't thin at all.
Right. I agree. So if it's at least that quality or more, I think that's perfect for
the type of game it is.
Right.
I think that's about as good as you can ask for.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure if there's going to be more cards or whatnot, but I mean, if this is the actual size of the box, I think for the type of game it is, being mainly the cards and then also the scoring pad and some pencils, I think that's about the perfect size box. I don't know if the box size is different, but if that's the size of the box, I think that's about a perfect size, which always helps as well. Preference.
Out of these type of games, we don't play that many of these, like Cards Against Humanity and stuff like that.
I would say that this is like Cards
No,
Against
it's not, but I mean, I would say they're in the overall same bucket of games for all of them. But a lot of those can kind of turn a little adult. They have a lot of dirty cards and stuff, and this one I think is very family friendly and just fun and even wholesome.
Right.
So I ended up giving it an 8.
You were. I tried to think of it as more of a party game, but I probably gave it a little bit lower, just comparing it to the other games. So I gave it a 6.75. I still, for party games, it's still one of my favorite ones, I think, of the ones that I do play. And it just brings out a lot of creative thinking, I think. It kind of helps you, if you're trying to challenge yourself to kind of be more creative, it's a good way to do it. Kind of forcing yourself to come up with like new stories. Or, I mean, like you said, it being a family game, there might be a few cards in there that you might want to take out if you have younger kids, but...
you can definitely make it a little, at least PG-13 rated R, possibly with some of the scenarios and items, but...
But yeah, I think you could take enough out that, too, if you wanted to, if you wanted your kids or whatever, this could be a good, I think, high school or a school game where, like a speech class or something, kind of trying to get them to think creatively of stories and stuff. I think it's a good way to do that, for sure. But then, too, at the end of the day, it's a little lower because I think you need the right group. We need the right group to play it as well, which kind of dings it a little bit, whereas just one, which is hard. I'm comparing it to just one, which is my favorite party game, so it's take that with a grain of salt. But it's just like that's just a little bit easier because the people just have to come up with one where it's not quite as intimidating. This can still be, I think, a little intimidating to some people. It's not awful compared to some games, but this can still be a little intimidating to try to get a story, especially, there's a chance you might get 5 really, really bad cards that don't work together. And it's just, if you have people that are a little more shy, it can be a little tougher. So I think if I have the right group that wanted to play it, I think then it would definitely be a slightly higher, but I just don't know the people I play with if I have that many opportunities to play it either.
True.
So, but still, it's one of my favorite ones, party games.
Good. What about it factor?
For it factor, I just gave it a 2. Because, I don't know. At the end of the day, it still does feel like some of these other party games that you said. But I do like the creativity factor of it, of coming up with your own stories. I feel like that's something we sometimes like to do. Me and you personally. So I don't know if this game might be towards us a little bit more than some other people. Because sometimes people don't... you have to be willing to be a little more zany with your stories for this game, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, I think it's fun as a party game, but I don't know that there's anything about it that is just like so like, oh my gosh, it factor. But I give it a 2.
Okay, I may have went a little wild with this one.
Oh boy, he's getting zany just doing this CHIPPI review.
Getting wild. I gave it an 8. I just feel like this one, over a lot of other party games, is going to create those memorable, literal stories that you're going to remember. You're going to remember the time you escaped from a burning building by, what did you do?
Using honey and a wire,
yourself
copper
in
wire.
Honey.
And an
slid
umbrella.
down the rope with an umbrella. I'm going to remember, I'm going to have that image burnt into my brain for the rest of my life.
It was a way to escape, for sure. But yeah, I agree with that. That's true. I probably could have given it a little bit higher because that is true. The stories that you can get from this game,
just
is
one. Like I don't really
different.
Remember any specific game that we had of that.
That's true. I suppose I probably should have given it a little bit higher on that, but yeah, I can see it definitely being a higher score for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So what does that bring our totals to?
Well, I'm going to say mine first, because I think yours is going to be just slightly higher than mine, but I've got an overall of a 6.4, which I think it'll continue to go up just because I've only played it 3 times, so once I'd play it 10 times, if everything else stayed the same, that would put it up to a 7.1, which is pretty good. And 6.4 isn't bad either, for sure. And it's...
definitely for a party game.
Right, for a party game, for sure. Because, there's a lot of them. Like, I'm not a fan of some of the party games, especially ones that kind of just, in themselves, just continue, or make the game go on and on and on when it doesn't have to. Like, it just, like, there's some mechanic in the game that forces it to go on. This one has, they're very great with their timing of 3 rounds. I think that's almost perfect because there's some party games. If there's some people that would have created this would have said like 5, 6, 7 rounds.
Now that we say this, when they release, it'll be like, oh, we upped it to 10 rounds.
But I think it's probably the party game. I shouldn't say I haven't played a ton of party games, but it definitely makes me think a lot more than other party games in a creative way, at least. And I also like the interesting drafting of it. Kind of that push your luck drafting, where either take the item that you can get, or you go all in on the baby doll that's coming up next. Then I think just the main thing that's keeping it down is I think you need the right group for the game.
Yeah, mine ended up being a 7 out of 10, and with more plays, I could bump it up to maybe somewhere near an 8. I think this is definitely going to be near the top of my party game lists. I think it creates those memories, and I mean that's what you're asking for with a party game.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so if this sounds interesting to you at all, if you're looking for the next creative party game in your life, definitely check out the Kickstarter on July 20th, and we'll get that link in the description below once it goes live. Otherwise, I think we can also put the link to the page that's up right now, kind of to get the old notification of when it launches. So we will add that below as well. Otherwise, if you've got any other questions about the game, leave us a comment below, and we'll get back to you with a response as quickly as possible. And also, don't forget to
keep on nibbling.